welcome back to America Right Now. I'm Tom Basili. You have been watching our continuing coverage here on Newsmax television of election 2020. As you have been following, a number of the major news outlets and networks have called the election for Joe Biden. Here at Newsmax television, given the closeness of the race in a number of these states, the number of outstanding ballots, and some legal challenges that have yet to be resolved, we are not going to call the race for Joe Biden. We believe that it's not our job to put our finger on the scale in any way here, but to allow this process to play out, continuing to inform you, the viewer, and ask the right questions of both the Trump campaign and the Democrats going forward. And we have heard now that former Vice President Joe Biden will speak again tonight at approximately 8 p.m. We will have live coverage of his remarks, and then we are also doing a show hosted by our very own Rob Schmidt tonight, starting at 8 o'clock, going from 8, I believe, until 10. So you're not going to want to miss our continuing coverage of Vote for America 2020. And again, we are joined now by Tim Moore, who is the Speaker of the House of Representatives in the state of North Carolina. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for being with us and for sticking with us. I know we were supposed to have you on a few minutes ago, but clearly breaking news has changed our lineup today. The state of North Carolina is still very much in play, according to the latest vote tallies. President Trump is up ahead there by about 80,000 votes. Why hasn't the race been called at this point?
Well, I do think it is actually appropriate to go ahead and call the race in North Carolina for President Trump. What we had asked for from the State Board of Elections was information about exactly how many ballots there were outstanding in terms of ballots to be received by mail. And so we had not received that information, and we felt that would be comfortable. So, for example, if there were only 30,000 ballots that were going to come in, and the president's enjoying a roughly 74,000 vote margin, then even if all of those votes went against the president, which they wouldn't, the president would still clearly win the state. And so one of the things that we were asking the State Board of Elections to do was to release that information so that on the media side that North Carolina could be called for the president, because the president does have a very comfortable lead here. All the information I've seen indicates that the president is definitely going to carry North Carolina, as well as Senator Tillis. And so in response to kind of the elevated directive where I instructed our elections committee to get involved, the State Board of Elections did in fact provide that data to us. Our folks are still analyzing that right now, and once they've gone through it, and it was a huge data dump file. But once we get all that and we get the opportunity to finish going through it, we're going to make sure we share that with all media outlets and everyone else, because it's really clear here that North Carolina voted overwhelmingly for President Trump with, like I say, about a 74 or 75,000 vote majority, and then as well as for Senator Tillis. So those can be called. It does look like that the actual ultimate outcome on the presidential race is going to be determined in these other states, that North Carolina is going to go in the Trump column, and the conversation will move on from there. But, as a state legislator for this state, I felt it very important that the will of the voters in North Carolina be correctly reflected as we go through this process.
Mr. Speaker, just out of curiosity, your Secretary of State, Democrat or Republican?
Well, we're a little different than a lot of other states. Our Secretary of State is not in charge of elections. In our state, it's actually the governor who appoints a majority of the members of the State Board of Elections, and then the minority party, which right now, because the governor is a Democrat, the Republican Party nominates individuals, and the governor appoints from that list of nominees for Republicans. But it is a majority board where the Democrats compose a majority. So one of the things that you're going to see us move forward when we come back into session is we're going to run legislation to make North Carolina's Board of Election truly bipartisan, where you have an equal number of Republicans and Democrats. That way you don't get into this situation where one side has control over the election apparatus. And frankly, a lot of this is about the perception to the voters. I mean, the voters need to always feel confident and feel comfortable that what's happening in terms of the ballot counting and the process is being done fairly, that everyone's vote that's a legal, valid vote does count. And if you look at where we are, if folks know that the lawful ballots are counted, then people accept the results.
Right.
And it's democracy. It's very important that folks have confidence in the election process. And what I can tell you is it does look like in North Carolina that actually there's not been any problems. But the fact that the information was being withheld for so long really did generate a lot of questions, and I think it was bad optics. So hopefully with them finally releasing this information at our insistence, we're going to be able to get that cleared up, get the state declared for President Trump, for Senator Tillis, and move on.
One more question for you, Mr. Speaker. Look at, North Carolina used to be a reliably red state. The fact that we're even talking about North Carolina and whether or not it goes for Donald Trump 5 days after an election, clearly there seems to be a political shift going on in the state of North Carolina. I have warned for years that North Carolina could become New York South, or South New York, or South New Jersey. In addition to some of the things that you want to do from a legislative standpoint to protect your elections, what is the party doing in North Carolina to prevent it becoming a blue or a more liberal state?
Well, for one thing, I hope that our great barbecue that we have here will always keep us from being the New York or the New Jersey of the South. But a couple of great things are happening. And so, number one, President Trump did in fact carry the state. Senator Tillis did win re-election to the U.S. Senate, which means we now have 2 members of the U.S. Senate that are Republicans. We will now have 8 Republican members of Congress, 5 Democrats. In North Carolina, our legislature has remained Republican, even though huge millions and millions of dollars were dumped into the state to try to flip our legislature blue. And not only did we in the House maintain the majority, we actually added 4 seats to our majority in the face of this. So we have a 69 to 51 majority. We're only 3 short of a supermajority. And our statewide Republican candidates for judge from Supreme Court to Court of Appeals, every single one of them, all 8 won. Okay. So North Carolina actually has held strong. It has a purple tint to it, but I think this year folks can look at North Carolina and see that we were solidly red, solidly in the Republican category.
Tim Moore, Speaker of the House of Representatives of North Carolina. No blue wave there either. Thank you very much for sticking with us and for your analysis today. Okay. And the Attorney General in Pennsylvania has just released a tweet that says, and this is in response to Rudy Giuliani's comments just moments ago, it says, every PA ballot has been counted with observers from the campaigns. Every PA ballot has been counted in accordance with the law. I don't know where he's getting that from, because I think we've seen enough video and photos, and we've heard from enough people over the last 5 days that would dispute that, particularly in Allegheny County and particularly in Philadelphia. But we will see. The court battle begins on Monday, and we'll be right back with Arizona Congressman Paul Gosar. Don't go away.